What is going on, everyone? We are here for another podcast, and the Phillies win 4 games in a row. Did they need that? I know the Mets stink. I understand that they are falling apart from top to bottom. They're punching reporters in the face. Their players are punching reporters in the face. It's hysterical. I don't know what Mickey's doing over there, but I don't care. What I care about is the Philadelphia Phillies finding a way to win 4 straight games after a 7-game losing streak. Where are they now? Well, we will discuss that today in this podcast. My cousin Taylor is back from vacation. He had a great time. He partied. He had a good time. And now,
yes, I did.
Yes, you did. And now it's time to get back to business. It's time to discuss the Phillies. And listen, the 7-game stretch was brutal. We were questioning what was going on with this clubhouse. We were questioning Matt Klentak, and what did we do? We find a way to beat up on a bad Mets team, but they were emotional wins. They were come-from-behind wins. They were walk-off wins, which we didn't see at all so far this season. How did you feel about this 4-game series after the 7-game stretch?
It was great to see. If there's one thing this team has been able to do, not just this year, but at times last year, is battle back under Gabe Kapler. If there's one thing Gabe Kapler knows how to do, it's how to rally the clubhouse for sure. And to see this team not just win 4 straight against the Mets, win 4 straight comebacks against the Mets. That's what I love to see. That's what the fight that this team has had up until this 7-game skid, and to see that back, and all because of this kind of plant that Brad Miller decided to bring into the locker room.
Well, if you're listening on the podcast version, you can't see. But on the YouTube part of this, we have bamboo splattered against the back of our screen, which I think is perfect. I mean, I am full throttle involved and invested into the bamboo. I'm a firm believer, and that is the reason why we're winning. I am a big fan of the curveball machine too, but the bamboo took over.
Yeah, and seeing how Gabe Kapler has bamboo and all the players are getting bamboo, and they keep bringing a bigger bamboo plant into the clubhouse. It's ridiculous. We have Gritty, we had the dog masks, and now we have the bamboo.
The bamboo. Did you see, before we get diving into this thing, Did you see the picture of Gabe Kapler in his office with the bamboo plant? I tweeted it out this morning. I think I sent it to you. Did you see the picture I'm talking about or no?
Yeah, my favorite part about it is how vanilla Gabe Kapler's desk is, and then there's just a little bamboo plant sitting right there.
Well, I'm thinking on the wall, Albert Einstein's just chilling on the wall. Like, that cracks me up. I know, it's just funny. Gabe Kapler, come on. I'm surprised he doesn't have Arnold Schwarzenegger, like, in his prime, like, biceps all
with the
busting out.
The leopard skin Speedos.
That's phenomenal.
This team just needed something to rally around. And when you're losing 7 straight and you're falling behind in the division, you need something to bring your team together. And I guess this was it.
Yeah, and it was crazy because you lose 2 of 3 to Atlanta. This is to start the 7-game brutal stretch. You lose 2 of 3, and that Sunday game, that Father's Day game, we didn't really have a legit pitcher, and Arrieta could have went on the mound because we had an extra day off with that National Series, I believe, beforehand, so it played a factor, and then we didn't go with him. We got smoked. We lose 2 of 3 to Atlanta at the end of the day. We get swept in Washington. We get swept at home against the Marlins. I mean, Matt Klentak was coming out on Phillies pregame live with Barkan and Ricky Bo just to reassure everyone, we're fine. Like, that's how low of a point it got. We had our GM on Phillies pregame live to calm everyone down. It was bad. Losing 7 games in a row was hard to do. You can't even do that if you tried in baseball.
And one of the things I've noticed, and you've mentioned it before, and I've talked to people about this all the time, is since the Eagles won the Super Bowl, and I know that's a couple of years ago now, I can't believe I'm saying that, but ever since the Eagles won the Super Bowl, we've treated baseball season like football season. 7-game losing streaks. Even good teams go through ups and downs during a baseball season. It's not like a football season where divide the 162 games you play in a baseball season by the 16 games that you play in a football season. What does that equal? I'm not sure off the top of my head, but
I know what you're getting at.
We're treating it like that. We act like it's the end of the world when there's a skid. And yeah, the Braves can't lose, it seems. It seems like they win every single game ever. But that doesn't mean that we can't make the playoffs. It doesn't mean it's a lost season. And trust me, this won't be the last losing streak we have in the rest of the year. There's lots of baseball to play.
Yeah, I agree. The only thing that bothers me is, and I heard a good point, I believe it might have been Mike Schmidt on one of the broadcasts, is you can't win anything in the regular season, but you sure as hell can lose a playoff spot in the regular season. And I hope we don't look back during that 7-game stretch at one point and say, that's the reason why we're playing in the wild card game instead of having a pretty much a bye when it comes to the wild card. And I think it might. Sadly, I think there's a chance that stretch could cost us, not having to play a wild card game.
Yes, but at the same time, right now, as it stands pre-deadline, the Braves are better. They are a better all-around baseball team. And if we accept that, if we learn to accept that for this year, it doesn't mean we won't be better next year or the year after that. If we learn to accept that this year, then maybe a wild card spot doesn't seem too bad.
Now, listen, you're right. Coming into this year, and I remember specifically talking about it, I just said, get me to playoffs. I don't care if it's a wild card spot. Just get me to playoffs. We need to jump. We need to show that, okay, this core is what's going to help us move forward. Now, there's going to be pieces that come in and out, but we have a core, a structured core that we're trying to make a leap with, and the first step is let's get into the playoffs and build from there. So before the season started, I said, just get me to playoffs. And it's funny how now that we're emotionally invested, it's harder to remember that was the mindset going into the season to begin with.
And people forget that in every sport except for the NBA, just make the playoffs. That's all that matters. Do people forget 2011? What happened then? We were the best team in baseball. Who beat us?
No, I don't want to talk about it. Yeah,
the wild card seed. And what did that team do?
Ugh.
They won World Series.
Ugh.
So I know, but in this case, just make the playoffs. And people forget. So lots of people are counting this team out to make the playoffs just because of that 7-game losing skid. We have the same record as we did in 2008 at this point in the season. The same exact record.
Yeah, I don't think playoffs... I mean, I don't think counting this team out... what I'm trying to get at here is to say we can't make playoffs right now is ridiculous. I mean, I think this 4-game win streak changed the mentality of a lot of the fan base's minds as it is, and I think we should take a look at how this series went overall. So in Game 1, we started this game off, and we had 19 hits, 19 total hits. We score 13 runs. We win 13-7. We came back from behind. We were down 2-0 at one point. We were down 6-5 at one point. And Maikel Franco came up big with a 2-run homer. Rhys Hoskins, Jean Segura, Jay Bruce also hit homers in that game. It was a game where the offense was just clicking. It was phenomenal. We were scoring runs, and it was just nice to see because obviously this was the first game to snap that losing skid, so it was nice to see the offense come alive.
Yeah, and to see them battle back. Every time the Mets battled back, got some runs, we battled back. We got some runs of our own. When was the last time you saw the team do that before this game? I don't remember.
Yeah, no, you're right.
And early on in the season, that was the norm. If we were down 3 runs, I thought, well, you're going to need to score more to beat us with that.
Yeah, there were lots of times where in the beginning of the season we were down 4 and we would be texting and it's the 6th inning and we say, all right, well, here it goes. Like, we're coming back. We knew we were coming back.
We were averaging, 7 runs a game, 8 runs a game? It seemed like every single game we were scoring close to double-digit runs.
Yeah, it was about 8. I believe we averaged 8 at one point. And I knew that wasn't something that we could keep up forever, but we did average about 8 runs. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I'll get to the pitching. I want to just take a look at the overall games first, but I'll get to how the pitching went in each game afterward. So we win 13-7. It was a nice way to find a way to come back at different points in the ball game, and Franco coming up big was nice to see. In game 2, we win 7-5, and we were down 4-1, and we were down 5-2. So 2 times in this ball game we were down 3 runs, and who but Maikel Franco hits a 2-run home run to give us a 6-5 lead. Brad Miller hits a back-to-back homer with Franco to make it 7-5. He had a 6 celebration, stuck the tongue out to the bench, and Scott Kingery actually got thrown at afterwards.
And then my favorite part.
What was that?
Oh, Gabe Kapler getting ejected.
Oh yeah, that's that's right. He had that was the fake one where, not fake, but that was the soft Joe West call.
Yeah. And can we talk about Joe West for 2 seconds?
Yes, we can.
He's a joke.
He is a joke.
How he has been able to do what he's done for so long. How long has he been an umpire now?
Too long.
Decades.
Yeah.
He does this in every game. He inserts himself into the game.
I think Angel Hernandez might be worse. To be honest with you, I think he is.
Angel Hernandez is bad because he makes bad calls.
Correct.
Joe West is bad because he inserts himself into the game flagrantly and on purpose.
Yeah. Well, the letter of the law states that Kapler should have been kicked out of that ball game because you can't even leave the dugout after you give a warning like that. But the fact is, you didn't let the Phillies get a shot of their own.
Yeah, and even if they whether they got a shot of their own or not, why are you warning both teams when only one team is showing any signs of aggression? I get that you want to keep like a fight from breaking out or something like that, but it seemed quick, and granted the circumstances, I think Joe West should have made an exception.
Yeah, I think so too. You know what I noticed during that moment, though? First off, it was so obvious. You let up back-to-back dingers, and you're so mad that you end up chucking one at Scott Kingery's shoulder, whatever. But have you ever seen the Phillies throw at someone? I mean, really, have we ever? I'm talking this year. Why don't we ever do that? Why don't we ever show things like that? Like, we never throw at people.
I don't think that's Gabe Kapler's style.
Yeah, I know. I know it's not.
That's a very old school baseball style, and it showed because the number one thing I've heard about when they threw at Kingery is that the Mets pitching coach is in his 80s.
Yeah, I know. I did see that.
He's been in this league for a long time, and so you can imagine he's an old school coach, and it's the antithesis of Gabe Kapler.
Yeah.
Similar to how new school hockey is less fighting, less hitting, Sidney Crosby style. You have new school baseball.
But would you say around the league throwing at people is down? Because I think that there's plenty of people who throw at other players around the league. We never. I'm not saying I'm sitting here demanding that we're throwing at people, like screaming my face off, but we don't see that side of the game with the Phillies.
And I feel like there's probably times where it's happened and we didn't realize it was on purpose.
Yeah, I guess so. Maybe. Or we're just so used to our pitchers being all over the place, it's like, ooh, yeah, there's no way he meant to do that. We just stink sometimes.
Some of them.
Yeah. Well, we'll get into pitching, like I said, but we win game 1 13-7. We win game 2 7-5. Maikel Franco with 2-run homers in both of those games, which was just absolutely electric. Game 3, we get our first walk-off of the season. Jay Bruce with a walk-off. We were down 4-0. 4-0. And Mickey Callaway pulls Vargas with 77 pitches and 10 strikeouts, which changed the entire game. Yeah. We have to thank him for that move. It was horrendous, but we took advantage. We end up getting a home run by Jean Segura. We get doubles by JT Realmuto, Cesar Hernandez, and we come up. We tied the game in the 7th, and Jay Bruce in the 9th hits a double over the center fielder's head, and our first walk-off of the season, Bruce!
Bruce. He is spectacular. He really is.
I know.
he brings not only another power bat, but he brings this veteran presence that I think is really understated. No one's really talking about the fact that he's a veteran presence in what's a pretty young clubhouse.
Yes.
And for him to get that first walk-off hit of the year, even though we won those 2 games before, I think yesterday's win was huge for the long term. And not only that, but to see this team battle back like that, because I'll be honest, when they were down 4-0, I was thinking, oh, they're back. We're back to that style of baseball we were getting in that 7-game skid. And I was at a sports bar watching the game, and I was feeling down, and it was right before I left when we tied the ball game. And I went, oh my God, what's with this bamboo?
The bamboo strikes
it's
again.
It's a bamboo.
Yeah, it is.
That's what it is.
It is. I was thinking the other day, where would we be without Jay Bruce? I mean, in left field, who would be there? Nick Williams? I mean, really, Nick Williams maybe? Like, who would be out there? We would be in trouble. We would be in trouble.
And I felt bad in yesterday's game because I thought Nick Pivetta pitched a little better than the scoreboard said.
See, I have this on my notes. I'm biased towards Nick Pivetta, so when he does a little bit bad, I'll rip him apart as it was probably worse than what it is. But I looked at Nick Pivetta's 5 2/3, and he allowed 9 hits and 4 earned runs, 3 walks. I looked at that and said, not good enough.
Sure.
Yeah.
But when you're getting no run support, it's also really hard. And I think many of our starting pitchers who haven't been getting run support during that 7-game skid, if you're not Aaron Nola, because obviously Aaron Nola's been doing great, you're going to have a hard time keeping the game as close as you'd like, especially when you're not that number one guy.
Yeah.
And that's not an excuse, but it kind of is.
Yeah, I'm hard on Nick Pivetta. I mean, really, he has an average game, and I say it's a bad game. Just because when you do have the background of you're not getting it done, well, then an average game to me becomes, hey, listen, that's still not getting it done. And I don't love Nick Pivetta, and I wouldn't say that was a great game for him, but we end up winning, and a very emotional win, which was awesome. And then that goes into Game 4 of the series where we win. I believe it was 6-3. The final score didn't even register in my head because all I cared about was that Jean Segura walk-off. But what else is so big about that? Maikel Franco's 2-run homer in the 9th before that. This guy is something else. The guy's something else.
Real talk. What do you think Mets fans think of Maikel Franco right now?
Hate him. Mets killer.
He's a killer.
Well, actually, a lot of
us.
Yeah, definitely.
I hate Jeff McNeil.
Yeah, I know he's a killer, but realistically, Mets fans are more right now not even worried about Maikel Franco. They're more worried about what the hell is going on with our clubhouse and their bullpen. But the only thing I'll say is Game 4 of this series, there's no excuse because Diaz is a stud. So you have to take a look on the other side and tip your cap because the way the Phillies came back, we were up 1-0 because of a Bryce Harper 438-foot bomb, and Hector Neris comes in for the 3rd straight night. He blows the save. We allow 3 runs. Todd Frazier had a 2-run bomb, and Maikel Franco hits a 2-run shot to tie the game 3-3, and Jean Segura hits a 3-run bomb. I mean, you got to give them credit for going up against a legitimate stud closer. This wasn't a bullpen that just falls apart on the Mets. This was their guy, and who has had a successful amount of saves in this league, and we did damage.
Yeah, to start, seeing Bryce Harper's home run, I was shocked when I saw it was less than 450.
Yeah, me too, actually.
It bounced into the alley.
I know.
There are people who are just in line for beers going after the baseball. How often do you see that? Really?
Well, with Bryce Harper, it seems like very common, which is nuts.
I only remember Ryan Howard hitting 1 ball in the Ashburn Alley, and I'm pretty sure Bryce Harper's already hit 2.
Yeah, if not 3.
Yeah. And Maikel Franco, one thing I've realized about him is he may not be consistent whatsoever. He may not be the most useful of flares, especially when he's struggling. But the guy could be clutch. This is not his first clutch hit, and he's had several. over his time with the Phillies. He is not afraid of the moment at all.
One thing I brought up to my one buddy when discussing Maikel Franco, it was, I'm starting to question the coaching staff on why he was sit to the extent that he was. And I do know during that time, I said, listen, Maikel Franco's unplayable. So I agree with him because he was playing that bad. I mean, 200 hitter. He was horrendous. He was swinging in the dirt. His helmet was flying off with these swings. He looked so horrendous. And I question, was it worth sitting him if he can provide this type of game? But the only thing I'll say is sometimes players rally and sometimes players use that to fuel them. And you can't just say he would have done this if he played throughout that stretch of him getting set. You just don't know. That could have been the reason why he's doing so well right now. It bothered him so much that he was unplayable that he focused that much more to get back in the lineup and make a statement when he had a chance to.
And it's completely about form with Franco. It's always been the talk. It's about form.
Because he pulls everything. He tries to. Yeah.
If he keeps trying to grip the ball and send it to left field, he's going to have a bad time. When he's swinging, hitting those balls to center field, getting those opposite field hits through the shift, he's great. Not just good, but he's great. And here's what I'll say about the idea of him being unplayable. When players like, say, Scott Kingery, when he's doing poorly, he still has value in that he's fast. He can play lots of positions, among other things. I would say he's a slightly better fielder than Franco is, probably about even. When Franco struggles, well, he's probably the slowest player on the team. He really struggles at the plate. He grounds into double plays like no one's business. So he becomes a liability. He becomes another pitcher's hole, essentially, in the lineup. And that's why he becomes unplayable, and that's why they had to sit him. And
but the problem is we replace him with Sean Rodriguez and players like that where, is that really helping Roman Quinn? Like, I'm even anti-Roman Quinn. I know he's fast, and I know you can put him in pinch hit or pinch running situations or late in the ball game to help defend out in center field. I know he has value, but when you're taking Franco's pop out of the lineup, we're replacing him with Sean Rodriguez, or we're putting Roman Quinn in center field, so that means we're moving Scott Kingery to third, but those bats aren't worthy of sitting Franco at this point.
And that brings me to what I think our next topic should be, which is, what do we need at the deadline?
Yeah.
We have no bench at all.
The bench is a problem. There's so many times now. Well, recently we've been going with Brad Miller, which isn't great, but
he's been good.
Yeah, he has been all right. He even had a nice walk in Game 4 of the series to help us get sparked up a little bit as well. And he's okay, but Jay Bruce was supposed to be our bench guy. That's what you need to think about. That's what we need. Jay Bruce was supposed to be our bench guy. We love him right now because he's batting every day. That would be our go-to guy off the bench. When we have these bases-loaded situations after Brad Miller already bats, we're putting up Sean Rodriguez. And it's just not good enough. It's just not good. Oh, wait, did I just say Sean? I forget what I said, had that big walk in the fourth. I believe it was Sean Rodriguez. I don't think it was Brad Miller. But anyway, it doesn't matter.
Oh, okay. No,
it doesn't matter.
We don't have a backup catcher that's worth a minute to the major league level. He is a joke. Andrew Knapp is such a joke.
It's so bad.
And in terms of what I'm hoping for at the deadline, I'd like him to add someone for the bench, preferably in the infield, and another starter. I think we've seen our bullpen improve tenfold, especially during this 4-game streak.
I have Juan Nicasio in my notes to talk about. His June is absurd. He's been so good. He's been so good. I can't believe it.
People forget he throws 95-mile-an-hour fastballs consistently.
Yeah.
That's pretty. You could do something with that if you can locate it.
He's been so remarkable, and I watch guys like Nick Pivetta struggle with the fastball. One of the stats I saw Corey Seidman put out during the game of Nick Pivetta in this Mets series was in 40 fastballs, there were 2 swing and misses on his fastball, and they were both against the pitcher. And that bothers me. And then I see Juan Nicasio throw the same speed and throw it by guys.
Mm-hmm. And you see people like JD Hammer entering the bullpen. He's been okay. He's has rookie ups and downs, but this bullpen is becoming more and more serviceable as the season goes on. And they're
We're only getting healthier. Yeah, only getting healthier.
And Tommy Hunter's going to come back soon. He's playing minor league games.
Yeah, see that I always think that, and then I remember last year. But Hector Neris last year was garbage, and he's great this year. So you don't really know what you're going to get. Bullpen guys are so year to year.
Tommy Hunter's second half of the season was spectacular, though.
Don't you remember me and you ripping apart Tommy Hunter almost every outing last year?
When he came in, we're like, the game's over.
The game's over. We're going to lose. Oh. But right now, bodies are bodies.
Yeah, and Gabe Kapler would put him into the game just 'cause.
Yeah.
He put him into the game in every difficult situation when we had Sir Anthony Dominguez pitching at his top level and guys like that.
Yeah, but I think you nailed it when you said what we need. We need to upgrade the bench. I'm not loving the bases loaded chances in the eighth in games. And, here's Sean Rodriguez, and he can't get anything done. Or Andrew Knapp in pinch hit situations if the game gets that deep where you have to use him. And Roman Quinn, it's just not good enough. We need to upgrade that position and the starting pitching. I just don't know how much future assets I want to give up for this run, because I don't know if we are close enough yet to go for that rental of Madison Bumgarner to win us the season or something of that nature. It needs to be something with a guy who has years to go. Like, I believe the pitcher from Detroit, Boyd, he has some years left to go, and it would make sense because he would stay here for the length of his contract.
And I think what we need is not necessarily an expensive player, trade-wise. I don't want to give up Alec Boehm. Alec Boehm is our third baseman of the future. He is a stud.
I agree. I do not want to give up Boehm.
He's going to be incredible, and if they trade him this season, I'm going to be pissed unless we win a World Series. I'm not kidding. I will be World Series or bust with this team because they made it that way.
Well, one thing Matt Klentak did say was something similar to, he's not going to mortgage the future, understanding where we were. And some fans took that the wrong way. Like, yo, dude, what do you mean? We're supposed to be making this run. You spent all this money. Now you're pulling away because we're in a losing streak. But I understand that mindset of, you want your GM to be in the let's win now mode. But it's good that he recognizes that, because as much as you yell at people, you yell at Gabe Kapler to be more legit and be more real. If things are ugly, say it's ugly. Don't feed us the bullshit, if you will, that Gabe Kapler tries to sell us after games that we lose. Well, then listen, here's your GM coming out and giving you it 100% real, keeping it on the real, and now you're upset about it. So which way do you want it?
And not just that. Do people forget that we signed Bryce Harper for 13 years?
Exactly.
This run is one of many. And this is not going to be the run that has the biggest chances of us getting a World Series. And those runs will come. They will. And get excited because they're coming.
Yeah, I agree, absolutely. This isn't the first year of it. This is, I always say this, we're in that 07-ish vibe where we're a year away from putting together more. Like, we have the culture, we have the squad to start making noise, but there's still some holes to fill, and sadly we got bit by something like Andrew McCutchen, which is huge, because now at the deadline we're talking about going to get an outfielder, where before we wouldn't have even had to, and we could have attacked something else, but things like that happen, and we have to adjust, and we have to reroute ourselves as an organization.
Yeah, and in 2007, and the reason why it feels that way is because 2007 had the feel of a run, and it was. But you knew there were holes that consistently popped up. In that case, it was the bullpen. In 2008, the year after, those holes got filled, and you felt like the team was more complete, and it showed because they came home with a ring.
I love that ring. I love that ring.
Too.
One thing I want to discuss, though, was the pitching in this 4-game set, and... Sure. In Game 4, Aaron Nola was fantastic. I mean, he went 7 innings, 10 Ks. That was Aaron Nola. And that's 2 good starts in a row now. Let's see if he can really really find himself and build off that.
Yeah, and I had no doubt from the beginning of the season that Aaron Nola was going to find himself. At worst, this would be his Cole Hamels 2009 season. We talked about that in one of our previous podcasts, I believe.
Yeah, that's the way I was. I think it was actually when we were just hanging out on the couch watching the Marlins
Yeah.
game, actually. But yeah, I'm on the same page as you. Well, I'm on the same page as that theory. I thought this was, hey, this is a Cole Hamels season, and it still can be. 2 starts isn't anything crazy, but that's the way I just pictured this playing out. Like, hey, this is a year Aaron Nola is going to struggle all year.
Yeah, and what happens with good pitchers and great pitchers is they have a season like that, and this season I think it might not be to the same extent as Hamels, but it's going to be a season where he has to find something new. In Cole Hamels' case, it was developing a curveball. And man, I don't know if you remember how much that changed how he pitched, the numbers he put up, how consistently he put up those numbers. He would save that curveball until the 4th or 5th inning.
Well, the problem with Nola right now isn't the adding a pitch. It's location right now. It's he's not locating these pitches. He has enough versatility with what he can bring to the table in his pitches. It's just executing it and putting it where it needs to be.
Yeah, and what I've noticed lately, because what I thought the problem was he was getting tired. It seemed that he would be doing okay, and then he'd get that third time through the lineup. And when he got to that third time through the lineup, they rocked him. That's the time where he got hit. And I'm pretty sure that, I might be wrong here, but Tom McCarthy was talking in one of the broadcasts about how at one point in the season, the numbers of the third time through the lineup was putting up on Aaron Nola season-wide. They were hitting something around between 285 and 300 against him.
Oof.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And now you see him going into the 7th inning. You see him going into the 8th inning. You see him putting up those quality starts of getting through that 6th inning, getting through that third time through the lineup, and not struggling.
Yeah, it is something nice to finally see out of Nola, and let's hope he can continue. One guy who I thought had a bad series was Jake Arrieta. Now, his stat line says, we went 6 innings, and that doesn't look so bad, and he allowed 9 hits, 5 earned runs. Dude, the ball was getting smoked. In the pitcher's defense, though, yeah. I knew Citizens Bank Park was very hitter-friendly. Is there something going on in the Citizens Bank Park air? Because it's been flying out to, like, an extreme.
What does Charlie Manuel say?
Say it. It's hitting season, boys.
It's hitting season. It is. The ball is flying out. The home runs that Scott Kingery's hitting, they're just dinking over the fence every single time.
So it's hard for me to yell at Jake Arrieta for allowing all these homers, and even Nick Pivetta allowed homers, and Eflin, same thing when he was getting his nod. I know the ballpark is allowing it to happen, but we got to be better. So Arrieta was bad in his night. Zach Eflin, luckily he had the run support that game. That was a tough game for Zach Eflin, the first game of this Mets series. 5 innings, 11 hits, and 6 earned runs. That was tough. That was tough at him. So my question really is, where do you rank this starting pitching right now? It's honestly, you ask me right now, and I know Nola's had 2 back-to-back really good games, so my heart tells me I'd probably throw Aaron Nola out there, but all around, our most consistent pitcher has been Zach Eflin, and I have the most faith in him, but really, Aaron Nola, Zach Eflin, what else really is there? We're going with Vince Velasquez for our 5th starter. Again, we already gave him the nod for this 5th starter role. We're going back to him for this Marlins series because the bullpen's getting healthier, but that bothers me. Like, that, we are done. We are done with this Vince Velasquez thing. We watch he's going to go out and have a great night and make everyone think he's good again. Like, he's not it. He's not it.
And here's the thing with Jake Arrieta, because I've given Jake Arrieta a lot of slack because of his past, because of his legacy. If I see one more overgripped curveball out of him, or slider rather, I swear, every time he tries to throw that pitch, it seems like it goes down and in to left-handed hitters and way away from the right-handed hitters. And when you're getting older and your velocity's down and you have to pick at the strike zone a little bit more than you used to, that doesn't fly anymore. You're not overpowering anyone anymore. You're not throwing fastballs by anyone anymore.
I used to be such a fan. I used to be such a fan of
too.
Arrieta. Really. And it's, you know what I think made me flip the switch? And it's similar to like Nick Pivetta. Like when he does okay, I have a bias about him, so I pick it apart and say, well, that wasn't good enough. Well, since Jake Arrieta made the comments in the first part of this season saying, you know, you need to be more prepared, you need to play better defense when I'm on the mound, he's sucked since then. And hey, Jake, you suck. I mean, really, like, listen, you're allowing these home runs. If I'm a teammate, as much as I would never actually do this, in my mind, I'm thinking, yo, dude, I'm about to go to the media after the game and say, Jake Arrieta sucked today. How about he keeps it in the damn ballpark? Like, that fires me up because this dude talks the talk, and that's fine. I respect that. You better back it the hell up. And he hasn't done that since. So it bothers me now that you have this mindset that you think you can call out everybody because they're not up to your level, and then here you are.
And here's what bothers me the most, is that it seems that when he comes out and he talks smack about his teammates and tries to hold the team responsible, it sounds selfish to me. It doesn't sound like it's for the good of the team. It sounds like it's for him.
That doesn't surprise me, though. That would never surprise me.
You're not doing enough for me. And I'll give him the benefit of the doubt on one thing. This team seems to play crappy defense whenever he pitches. Doesn't it seem like they always play their worst defense when he
Do you think that there's an intimidation factor?
Yes. Yes, I do.
Yeah, I think so too. Like, they're afraid to mess up because they know he'll. I think that one play, the one famous play of Sean Rodriguez so far this season for the Phillies was that bases loaded play, and he didn't know to tag didn't know to tag third and go home. And I wonder if in the back of his mind he's thinking, "Don't mess up, don't mess up, don't mess up. I'll get ripped by Jake Arrieta," and there he goes, gets ripped by Jake Arrieta.
Yeah, and in terms of Eflin, you're gonna have a bad start every now and then. And Eflin's been pitching mostly out of his mind this year. I think our expectations have already been exceeded for Zach Eflin based off of what we saw of him last year, which was he could never get out of the fifth inning. His pitch count was astronomical every time.
I definitely agree.
We were talking about this when we went to his start in the first game that I went to this year, when me, you, and my buddy went, that it seemed like he could never get guys out on a good pitch count, and all of a sudden, he's pitching out of his mind. He goes into the eighth.
Yeah, complete games. Like, he can legitimately pitch complete games. One thing I noticed with this ball club throughout this stretch here is I think they found a little bit of rhythm with their lineup. I know they were tossing things around, and I get that. I know when you're losing a ton of games there, you start picking out of a hat, you throw a new lineup together, try and find rhythm. But putting Scott Kingery at the one, which I know he hasn't been pretty the last two games, he's been struggling a little bit, but putting Scott Kingery in the leadoff position, getting Jean back at 2, Bryce at 3, Reese at 4, you can throw Jay Bruce at 5 or JT Realmuto there, and Cesar Franco. You're getting back into a rhythm of a lineup that I like to see that shows more depth and a little bit, it's a little bit more scary, if you will, if you're an opposing pitcher. I like the structure of the lineup that we put together, and I think that played a big factor.
And I'm sorry, Scott Kingery had 2 hits today, so don't be saying he had a rough couple games. He's been awesome.
Yeah, the first game of the series he was fantastic, and then he went through a game where he had a couple strikeouts there in a row. That's the only reason why I say that.
Bench him.
Well, hey, listen, I tweeted after the game. Weren't we supposed to bench Jean Segura? I mean, I would have benched him. You kidding me? What's a 3-run home run walk-off? That's nothing to me. He didn't hustle.
But Scott Kingery, what he's doing is unheard of. He's playing how many positions on the baseball field?
And last year that was the problem. Remember, and I was someone who said that, but last year he was
Me too.
playing too many positions that we said he couldn't get going whatsoever.
And he's playing mostly center field now, which is mostly a newish position for him in terms of he isn't an adept center fielder. So he's learning that as he goes while he hits 320, 330.
Well, I don't think he looks good at third base. He is a little overwhelmed there. He's getting more comfortable at center field. I can't put him at third base, though. I'd rather keep Franco there. Franco's been unreal at defense. He had that one play in the third game of the series. It was a foul ball, and I think it was the 10th inning. It looked like Derek Jeter in his prime. Now, it was foul, so it didn't work out like we wanted to, but it looked electric.
Yeah, and I think what's amazing about the way that Kepler has put the starting lineup together is that unlike in the 7-game skid, you don't feel like there's a part of the lineup where, oh man, we're screwed. Because during that 7-game skid when we were benching Franco and when he was in, he wasn't doing anything, and you had Knapp in there when JT was hurt, it just seemed like there was nothing at the end of that lineup. And now you have Franco hitting a little better. You feel like even if we're bad a little later in the lineup, we can still put an inning together.
Yeah, you're right. At one point, I mean, I'm telling you, we had Sean Rodriguez, Brad Miller, Andrew Knapp, and Roman Quinn as our last few hitters, and it just wasn't threatening. And that's why, as we come for full circle here with the lineup being right at the moment, it does show something similar to what we had in the beginning of the season, which is where everyone got all excited about the hitting and whatnot. And we do need to keep in mind that the Mets stink, and they're just literally ridiculous and falling apart, and they're in shambles. That has to play a factor, but taking 4 games is exactly what the Phillies needed right now. It's exactly what we needed after that 7-game losing streak. And the one thing that would make me happy is we go to Miami, and I'm not screaming we need to sweep them. The sweep would be nice, but if we win 2 of 3, absolutely. We are now 6-1 in 7 games, and that almost evens out the losing streak. So just win 2 of 3, I'll be happy, and let's move the hell on, because I believe the Braves are after that.
And then we play the Mets in New York. So make the most of this first half of, these last couple weeks before the All-Star break. Whip out the bamboo.
Haha, the bamboo and the curveball machine. We are 81 games into the season already. It flies the hell by. When I do these recaps and I'm typing in at the end, game 81, I can't believe we're at game 81. Game 81. The season flies the hell by. The trade deadline's sneaking up on us. The All-Star game is really almost there, and I do love the MLB All-Star game. It's definitely one of my, it is my favorite, but it's really crazy how, because it has the, I know it's not playing for anything anymore, which I think is the right move. It should never, ever, ever factor in Game 7 of a World Series, but it just has the most entertainment value for me, because the basketball, I like this and basketball. I love them all. It's not like I don't sit there and watch them all, but for some reason, baseball for me is just the best, and it might have to do with there's nothing else on, but maybe that is a factor.
And also, I want to know in the comments, who do you think the Phillies will have in the All-Star game? Because we only get one representative.
It's going to have to be Hector Neris.
You think so?
I know you're all about the JT Realmuto thing, and defensively, JT Realmuto has been the best catcher in baseball. Defensively, he's throwing guys out at second base at such an elite level, but I have to think when you look at all the numbers and all the players, and I hate how they do it, by the way, with voting, because it's so flawed. It's a popularity contest. It's not about who's actually good. But I would have to say Hector Neris statistically, even though he blew the save tonight, which is going to kind of make everybody's mindset different on this, but he has been our best, guy for an All-Star vote.
Yeah, and I think Rhys also is a candidate. Lots of people are saying that they might go with Rhys Hoskins, especially because last year he kind of got snubbed, in terms of the first base being a crowded position.
Yeah, no, I mean
wise.
that's fair. I mean, there's definitely an argument for it. It's a tough spot to land. I mean, hell, it's hard to make the All-Star game, especially like I said, it's a popularity contest. So Yankees players and Red Sox players, and not that Philly's not a big fan base, but there's people who are just favorite players. Like last year, I argued forever that Bryce Harper hitting 214,
No.
he should not have made the All-Star game last year. And
But
now
it
it's
was
funny.
in Washington.
Right, and now it's funny because this year he's hitting what, like around 250, mid 245 ish, and which is way better than last year. But now that he's on a different team, there's a different hype around Bryce Harper and what he's doing this year. So, hey, it is what it is.
Now he's a
Yeah, right. but yeah, no, this was a good podcast. We are going to close it down now. Just your final thoughts on how you feel about the Phillies now after that 4-game win streak and that sweep of the Mets.
Praise the bamboo.
Praise the bamboo. That's right. I just looked over to my screen and I see the bamboo in the background. I forgot all about it. That's probably the greatest touch that we added to this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
It's beautiful. But the 4-game win streak has changed the mindset of this fan base, and it's great. I mean, there shows some life, the excitement from the team, the excitement of the walk-offs, the emotion. You can tell that this team cares. It wasn't like they didn't care that they were losing. They were struggling. They were frustrated. Gabe Kapler literally got kicked out of the game. You were there for that game, the first one, where he was fired the hell up and kicked dirt on the umpires. The frustration was running high, and this kind of, you can see the emotion. This kind of helps cool it down a little bit, and maybe it fueled them.
And all I want to see is I want to see them ride that momentum. Don't take the foot off the gas pedal. My God.
Well, you would think Miami would piss them off from them coming into our own building and sweeping us. So you would think they'd play with some fire this weekend.
Absolutely. But in terms of just taking what's happened in these past 4 games and bringing that into the next series and the series after that, that's how you put together a big enough winning streak to, who knows, maybe get back into this division race, because you do have a series against the Braves.
Yes, and you know what's crazy? We played the Mets in a 4-game series. We actually skipped Thor and DeGrom. Isn't that almost impossible to do? Well, hey, Vargas's 70-mile-per-hour off-speed pitches gave us hell, so maybe we would have rocked Thor or DeGrom. Who knows?
Maybe.
So, with that being said, we're going to finish the podcast here. I thank you guys so much for listening. Taylor, thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you for having me, as always.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we will see you on the next podcast.